you're hitting the backcountry that your sewing machine stays nice and put and protected.
We are a family of 3 who have committed ourselves to hunting the fun stuff wherever the Army sends us. Our latest adventure involves a rooftop tent and some off-roading as we move from Fort Hood, Texas to Fort Irwin, California. Stay tuned for more adventures. Opening up the rooftop tent and specifically working the ladder is definitely a learning curve. We are still trying to figure out the best way to do that, so if you have any tips or tricks, please leave them in the comment section. That would really help us out. To celebrate our first night in our new tent, we popped a bottle of champagne and shared a charcuterie board of cheeses, cured meats, and fresh fruits and vegetables around a fire. One thing we learned from camping in our camper is to have a fast, easy meal after setup. This helps with hungry toddlers and husbands as it keeps the hanger at bay.
You're so smart!
Get out through the window. Last night. Does she eat these? Everybody brings this over. Make sure you get the overland sewing machine.
Oh my god.
Find an adequate spot so when you're hitting the backcountry that your sewing machine stays nice and put and protected. You never know when you're going to have to do some good old arts and crafts.
We stayed at a campground for our first official night out. Texas doesn't have a lot of BLM land where overlanders can camp for free because so much of the land is privately owned. So because this is our first night, we picked a campground close to home so we would have a backup in case we had any issues. Our friend Sam, who introduced us to overlanding, joined us from Houston for the night, and we had a great time learning tips and tricks as well as sharing gear. Mike's parents offered to watch Emma Grace and Riley, our dog, for the first night, which was such a blessing. They came out to the site and watched them while we set up, then we all enjoyed dinner before they took the baby and dog back to our house for bed. This allowed us to figure things out and communicate more clearly and ultimately led to a great first experience. It was a cold night. We ran out of propane for our fire pit and also for the Mr. Buddy heater that we ended up using. But hearing the sounds of the water drifting into our tent was so relaxing. It felt like an escape even though we were only 20 minutes from home.
Packets. Yeah. I'm actually pretty okay with strong coffee.
We spent most of the morning relaxing around camp, enjoying good coffee and good company, and then we packed up camp and headed home. Bluebonnets were in full swing when we arrived. One beautiful part about Texas in the spring is the quantity and variety of wildflowers. I have lived all over the United States and nowhere else have I seen wildflowers grow this prolifically. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to share that are kind of important to know. In the rooftop tent, moisture tends to accumulate pretty quickly. I haven't done a ton of tent camping in my days, so I know that this is a common problem, that ventilation is an issue. And there were several spots for things to air out, but for whatever reason we still woke up and there was just moisture on the walls. So that's an interesting idea. I know a lot of people use like a buddy heater afterwards when they're packing up to kind of dry out the inside of the tent, and we did do that on the second night and that did seem to help. But it's just an interesting feature because I thought there would be plenty of ventilation, and there kind of was. There were a couple spots that are just always ventilated, but it wasn't really enough for the two of us. The next thing is that the mattress itself, while initially super comfortable, over time it did start to kind of make my hips ache. So it's very, very firm, which is fantastic. Normally that's what I prefer. I like more support as I'm sleeping, but in this case it was almost too firm. So I think we will end up going in and like adding another extra 2 inches of like foam padding in there just to make sure that it's nice and soft and comfortable, especially because we're going to be sleeping on this for like 2 weeks straight up here in the summer. So that's going to be important. And the final takeaway from the first night was to pack more than 1 bottle of wine. I love sparkling wine, and it was really fun to pop that bottle to celebrate the beginning of our overlanding experience. It wasn't a super adventurous one, but it was perfect for what we wanted. We got to spend some quality time with friends and family, and overall had a great time. Stay tuned for our next video where we share our first night alone in the tent as a family. And as always, remember to hunt the fun stuff.